Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today we're exploring that totally jarring disconnect between the glamorous fiction of the entertainment industry and its deeply, deeply tragic reality. We're going to unpack a case that literally perfectly encapsulates this dark duality. It's a wild story, right? Full of manufactured wealth, fading dreams, erratic behavior, and a highly publicized murder trial that completely challenged the reputation of one of the world's most famous forensic scientists.
Section 1. Hollywood. Fantasy versus reality.
So, to truly understand Hollywood's obsession with limitless power and wealth, we've got to first look at the fictional billionaires it sells us. Entertainment is, after all, an industry built entirely on the illusion of grandeur. I mean, we all know superheroes save the world, but have you ever stopped to wonder just how much money characters like this actually have sitting in the bank?
Hollywood presents these characters as the absolute pinnacle of success. Think about it. T'Challa, the Black Panther, sits on literally trillions in vibranium. That's more wealth than the GDP of the entire global economy. Then you've got Black Bolt, commanding an estimated $200 billion thanks to the Inhuman royal family's assets. And of course, Tony Stark holding a cool $100 billion from Stark Industries. But here's the catch. This invincible glamour, this supposedly limitless wealth, it's completely manufactured. It's really just a glittering script.
But step away from those fictional billionaires for a second, and you drop right into the grim, unpolished reality of the real entertainment industry. As noted in our source material, the other side of Hollywood isn't always pretty. Behind all that glitz and glamour lies a much darker underbelly of disappointment, failure, obscurity, and sometimes horrific violence.
Section 2. The tragic trajectory. Let's look at the real-world collision of two vastly different Hollywood paths, starting with Lana Clarkson. She was this really promising actress who found a unique niche in 1980s cinema. She actually landed small roles in massive iconic hits like Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Scarface, and later achieved cult fame starring in Roger Corman's B-movie Barbarian Queen. But, you know, Hollywood is harsh. It really is. By 2003, those acting roles were completely gone, and she was working as a hostess at the House of Blues, just trying to support herself while plotting this whole transition into comedy.
Then on the completely opposite end of the spectrum, we had Phil Spector, a massively wealthy pop music pioneer. I mean, the guy literally invented the legendary wall of sound recording aesthetic, working with absolute icons like the Beatles and Tina Turner. But his musical genius was completely overshadowed by a very dark decline. By the 1980s, he had become increasingly unstable, totally reclusive, and most chillingly, he had a deeply documented history of pulling guns on people, specifically women who he believed had spurned his romantic advances.
Section 3. The night of the crime.
So these two individuals, one grasping for a comeback, the other completely isolated by his own instability, tragically crossed paths in the early hours of February 3, 2003. The actual sequence of events that night was chillingly simple. Step 1, Spector meets Clarkson at the House of Blues, where she was working. Step 2, she agrees to accompany him back to his sprawling suburban mansion in Alhambra. And then, Step 3, sometime before dawn, a fatal gunshot is fired. Lana Clarkson was shot in the mouth and killed.
Now, Spector insisted right to the very end that Clarkson's death was an accidental suicide. But there is this highly incriminating piece of evidence that pretty much shattered that defense. "I think I killed someone." Those were the exact words Spector uttered to his driver. The driver was waiting outside, heard the gunshot, and then actually saw Spector emerge from the house holding a weapon. Wild, right?
Section 4. The forensic controversy.
With absolutely no direct witnesses to the shooting itself, the investigation naturally shifted to the forensic evidence, and this brought a highly publicized expert into the spotlight, Dr. Henry Lee. He's a Chinese-born forensic scientist who became an absolute household name during the O.J. Simpson trial. Known for his serious courtroom showmanship and, of course, that signature large magnifying glass, he really made forensics accessible to the public long before shows like CSI even existed.
But during this trial, a massive dispute erupted that threatened his entire reputation. On one side, you have the prosecution's claim. They said Dr. Lee withheld crucial evidence, specifically a flat, white, rough-edged acrylic fingernail from Clarkson's right thumb. Think about why that matters. If true, a torn fingernail would prove she actively resisted having a gun placed in her mouth, completely destroying the whole suicide defense. But on the flip side, we have Dr. Lee's defense. He firmly denied this under oath, insisting he only recovered white threads and a piece of blood-stained carpet, nothing else. Well, relying on testimony from several witnesses, including, get this, Spector's former lawyer, Sarah Kaplan, who said she actually saw Lee place something into a vial, the judge issued a narrow but highly damaging ruling. Superior Court Judge Larry Paul Fidler stated, and I quote, "Dr. Lee did recover an item. It is flat, white, with rough edges. I cannot say if it is a fingernail. It has never been presented to the prosecution." Wow! While the defense tried to play this off as just an act of desperation by the prosecutors, that ruling permanently smudged a world-famous forensic scientist's credibility.
Section 5. Trials and Legacies.
So, with the scientific evidence hotly debated, the reputation of a star witness publicly challenged, and the grisly blood spatter pointing heavily to murder rather than suicide, the case finally went to the jury. And you know what? It actually took two completely distinct trials to resolve this whole thing. The first trial ended in a hung jury. They were deadlocked at 10-2 favoring conviction. But the prosecution, they didn't give up. They tried again. The second trial resulted in a guilty verdict, and Spector was sentenced to 19 years to life. His long, tragic decline ended in a prison cell where he ultimately died in 2021.
As we look at the endless documentaries, the flashy tabloid covers, and the media frenzy that continue to profit off cases exactly like this, we're really left with a lingering question. Why does our morbid fascination with celebrity tragedies so often overshadow the real human lives, like Lana Clarkson's, or the professional reputations, like Dr. Lee's, that are destroyed in its wake? What does this endless appetite for Hollywood's darkest reality truly say about us? Take a moment to think about that. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer.